Good evening. This is John Bailey, and this is People to be Heard, the program where people who have something to say have their say. And tonight, you've got Dan Welch, Program Director of Westchester Power, the group that is trying to make Westchester a cleaner power place. First of all, welcome back on the program, Dan.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Right, you're here because I, as a consumer and a member of the the Clean Energy Rate Group, for lack of a better term, received this letter, which you should probably be able to see. And this letter talked about my new rate and my new wind source. And the intriguing thing about this is I received the notification and it informs me that the green energy rate is going up to 8 cents, 0.08 cents per kilowatt hour, 0.08 cents. In addition, Westchester Power informs me Constellation.
It's actually $0.08. That's a
0.08
8 cents. 8 cents. Yeah.
8 cents. It is 8
It's 8
cents.
cents. Yeah.
Oh, great. In addition, Westchester Power informs me Constellation has selected a wind supplier. And what is the significance of this letter?
So I'm glad you raised this because it's emblematic of the communications challenges we face, and perhaps we don't do as good a job as we should, and there's a lot of information packed in that. First of all, the rate increase is something that came down from on high from New York State. It's called the Zero Emissions Credit, and it is specifically identified to fund nuclear plants that are up in the north of the state. They like to call them zero emissions because of the claim that nuclear is emissions free. We're not, tremendous fans of nuclear. We're working on the renewable part, but anyway, that is what it is. But the confusing thing is, came down, it got inserted into our rates. Our rates have never changed, but because the bill doesn't itemize these things, it goes
so
in
it looks
there
like
and
it's
appears
going up,
as an increase.
which it has,
Yes.
but
Now,
not
actually,
because of you.
Now, on top of that, the rate, that increase actually came into play last May already. And so this letter was actually meant as a notification of the contract extension and alerted you to what the rates are as well. And it included the pre and post wind reports.
Oh, absolutely clear.
So by the time you get through with all that, I guess I have to issue an apology for all that stew of stuff.
No, the apology should be from Governor Cuomo, because on the one hand, the governor is bailing out the plants up in northern New York State, but he's closing Indian Point down here.
Who knows what the dynamic, political dynamics is?
It's sort of a juxtaposition
of positions. But it came from out of nowhere, and the amount is 0.32 cents a kilowatt hour, which doesn't sound like much. It adds up to maybe $3 or $4 on your bill, but that's about the savings that we've managed to sort of carve out of through our aggregated purchase as well. And
so the clean aggregated purchases are
kind of
being
negated by this.
Now, how has the dirty electricity rate, the regular electricity rate, fluctuated compared to our rate? Do you have that?
Yeah, you can find it on the westchesterpower.org website under the rates tab, and you'll see this wild gyrations that the utility rate goes through, and our steady fixed Westchester Power rate, with the little jog when the 0.32 cents kicks in. But we have done pretty well. From the beginning of the program, we've saved, for the average account holders, maybe $50 or $100 in these couple of years, which is not a huge amount, but considering we did that, and we also purchased 100% wind power at the same time, and we shielded people from the spikes that the rate can undergo.
Well, they can be really hefty if you are all electric.
Yes, it can be a big thing.
You are dead.
For example, January saw this big spike. It was up to like 14 cents a kilowatt hour.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me.
And we started getting calls from people who weren't even in the program, like, what's going on?
Save me, please.
Yeah, yeah.
Energy refugees.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Now, last week you mentioned that Westchester Power opened its first new solar facility in Montrose last Friday. How long did this take, and what will it do for the Montrose area?
So that was a really exciting milestone for us. It's the first so-called community solar project. There's a manufacturer, the Quality Circle Corporation, owned by Gary Flom up there, and he's an environmentalist himself, member of the Sierra Club, and he decided he wanted to put solar on his building. He knew of us through the Solarized Westchester program that we run, Nina Orville runs for us, which has put 5 megawatts of rooftop solar in Westchester. Came to us, we were in the midst of crafting this community solar schema, and that turned out to be our first project. Developer comes in, puts the solar on the rooftop, then people who live around in the area can subscribe to that and get credit for that solar production on their Con Ed bill.
About how many households are affected?
This is not a huge project. It's kind of a pilot for us. It's something like 150 kilowatts, which is equivalent to maybe 30 households.
That still indicates the potential.
Oh, absolutely.
If you put some, every time you build a new building, you have to put solar power here. Like they should have put solar panels on the top of 55 Bank Street.
Yes.
That would have been nice. That's, but nobody thought of doing that.
Right.
And think of how much
it's
more
easy
the
to
rentals
imagine,
would
right?
be.
It's easy to imagine where this can go, and
Yes.
we intend to cookie cutter this. So one of the messages, I want to get out to your audience is, for building owners, this is a great opportunity. They get a lease fee for their roof, and they become integrated into this new energy economy. They get connected to their neighbors who can subscribe to the system, and it's wins all around.
But exactly 30 homes just now the solar facility. Perhaps we can get a picture of it and
Oh, sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I'll get
right.
that to you,
But,
definitely.
now
Let me just. The
Go
great
right.
thing is that
it is to be heard.
Knock on wood. These contracts that are coming in are all that we're putting together with the developers are usually coming in at a guaranteed discount to the utility rates. So there's this particular project is a 10% guaranteed discount. So there's like, why wouldn't you do it?
A building that is a rental or a condo, for that matter, that is being built or is thought of being built, should really consider that as giving a leg up on the proliferating competition for the millennials and the empty nesters who are cruising on up here.
Great message.
Right.
True.
Governor Cuomo announced the opening of a solar facility at New Paltz when we were taping the show this week. Is this supposed, and this is supposed to supply power, excuse me, to the college during power outages, and is this another purpose of the solar tide?
Yeah, I think there is an expectation that the solar power is going to help be a piece of the more resilient and hardened electrical supply grid that we're looking to in the future. We've certainly suffered from some of those problems recently. It's going to happen in combination with storage is the way to make that really work. Some battery storage. So you've probably been hearing about the developments on that side of things, because of course you're not getting solar in at nighttime. So it is coming. In fact, we have a gentleman on our staff, Michel de la Fontaine, who is working on a model project. He's won some NYSERDA grant funding to help put this together, which will be a solar plus battery storage project at one of the school districts here in Westchester, which again can serve as a model to replicate at schools, commercial institutions.
And WestchesterPower.org is the place to go for information on on all these goodies that he's telling us about here.
Right.
Now, where are your negotiations with White Plains and the other 20 cities in the Sustainable Westchester Consortium, especially White Plains?
So as you noted, you just got this letter about the contract extension,
Yeah.
which was actually, it was built into the contract all up front, and it was kind of a non-objection thing. If nobody wanted out, then it would continue under 32 months. So we're going to the end of the year. So probably in the summertime, we'll start the process of going around to all our municipalities. That's the big task, right? We have 20 municipalities, so we have to get in front of all of them and start talking about the targets for the next contract, pricing targets, maybe new product options. Are we going with the same greening recs?
Fixing the new rate for next year.
Right, and we're talking to developers and suppliers about how to integrate the green part of this thing more fully and use this program to push development of renewable projects here in Westchester. So those dollars stay here.
So the cities have not been rushing in to put solar on top of city-owned facilities yet. Is that fair to say?
You know, the backdrop has been changing from the regulatory side. So we had initially had Sustainable Westchester had organized a big aggregated buy on behalf of the municipalities, and we had maybe 15 or 20 municipalities that submitted sites. We put them out for bids from developers. They came in, and right at that moment, the Public Service Commission changed the structure of the rate as the power that was generated would be compensated and put back into the grid. So now only the very largest of those projects can still survive as straight community commercial.
Why did they
injections.
do that?
Because
lobbying against your...
No, it was with good intent. And
they never have good intentions. I'm sorry.
It will have good results.
Yes,
the goal was to make sure that the value of the injected resource was recognized, which sounds, in other words, if there's a congested spot on the grid, rather than bringing in supply from outside, you can do things locally and have local supply right there. It's more valuable. So it made some sense, but it threw all these projects into a little bit of disarray. We're going back out to those projects, and we're going to reassess them as community solar projects, because that's where the value is, especially since many of the municipalities purchase power through the NYPA system, the New York Power Authority system. Their rates are very low, but they can serve as hosts to these facilities, make some more revenue that way, and then the local residents can subscribe to those
we could
projects.
pop a lot of solar panels on top of the New York Power Authority building, if it's their building.
Yes, no doubt that would be symbolic and appropriate.
Well, we'll see if that happens, I mean, I have a problem with the New York Power Authority, because what authority do they have? You really wonder.
Yeah. Well, they operate in a certain sandbox as part of. They're not the entire industry here, but they do supply to many New York municipalities.
So you told me this week that the power grid right now can deliver enough electricity to replace the Indian Point nuclear plant output when it closes, or I guess supposedly right now. How is that possible?
Well, yes, and the best evidence we have for that is the fact that it's already happened from time to time. Every time the plant shuts down for maintenance, or scheduled or unscheduled, you essentially have the same situation. The physics of it is that to supply electricity, you have to do so instantaneously. So if you can shut down for a moment or for a day, and we can
lower
still supply
your output,
and we can still find supply, rerouting supplies and bringing on new supplies, then you can do it essentially in perpetuity.
It appears that Riverkeeper was right all along a number of years ago, when everybody was coming, you can't shut it down, we have no way of replacing it.
So John, my sense is
that crack journalistic fraternity didn't get that, did they?
My sense is that prior to the deal being made, and we're not a part of that. We got our job, and
we're all working together.
Yeah, but prior to that deal being made, there was a bit of posturing going on, and on the industry side, you know, they were trying to paint a very dire picture and try to get a deal to maybe keep it open or better deal for whatever.
Well, that was
now
the,
that it's
yeah,
now that the
energy started losing money big time, and that's,
and then they knew it was over,
yes,
and that was it. But you'll notice you don't hear a lot of these dire predictions anymore.
No, we don't.
So.
And now, what is solar's niche going ahead? And sort of relate that to the kind of electrons we're getting and the kind of electrons your solar facilities are supplying.
Right. Yeah, I think it's certainly going to go beyond niche. It's I think it's the fastest growing source of electricity as in terms of new capacity coming on, and it will be, right now it's in New York State, in renewables it's wind, then no, it's hydro, sorry, then wind, then solar, but solar is the fastest growing and may outpace all of those. You're not going to find that many more hydro facilities, and siting wind can be a challenge. Here in Westchester, solar is it, right? We're not going to put big wind towers up.
No, we are not.
But we have lots of rooftops.
Yes.
And we also have one, quotation marks, asset that other places don't have: high electric rates.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually provides an impetus for the development of the local power. There's an arbitrage there.
Now, you told me everybody is in love with natural gas because of the low cost. Do you see that cost going up and changing the dynamic for solar appeal?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. Fossil fuels just do that. It's ultimately it's a finite commodity. You drill those wells and then they get tapped out, and you hope somebody fixes the mess after the well is shut down.
We can't frack in this state.
We can't frack in New York State. As the demand goes up, they're doing more fracking in Pennsylvania and other places. But yeah, it's an expensive process. So I think ultimately that will register. And I think in terms of new electric capacity, already with the solar prices reducing, the renewables are competitive already.
So now, where's the investment money in these solar facilities going to come from? Municipalities, local business, capitalists?
Yeah, I think maybe
Sheiks,
a little bit all
right,
the above. Certainly capitalists, maybe even some socialists. I don't know.
Perhaps so. Socialists with high electric bills, right? Yeah.
But the capital is moving towards these projects now. They are financeable.
Banks are doing it?
Yes, there are major financial houses are creating funds that are supporting these projects, and there's actually a lot of money out there waiting for these projects to be developed and to come in. So that's not really a huge problem.
Yes. Now, Constellation is Westchester Power's supplier, and they are supplying all wind-created power to the grid. Is this the least expensive form? Yeah.
Yeah, again, wind was the cheapest of the renewables, and I think solar is just about catching up to it. It's very close, within fractions of a cent at this point.
Yeah. How do you see the grid being made affordable as demand escalates, which, well...
We have to do smart things. So I think we're looking towards efficiency. This battery storage is going to help us to avoid major capital expenses. Con Ed, for whatever you may think of them, in other venues, is looking hard at that. So, for example, there's a very notable project they did down in the city, where instead of doing $1 billion in new transmission, they created storage and other energy efficiency measures, which brought the demand down. So they were able to avoid that big investment and make a much smaller investment to cover the same need.
An off-the-wall question. How come New York City, with the highest buildings, the best sun, other than Miami because it's so high, not put a lot of solar panels on buildings?
Well, I think the focus in solar for the past couple of years has been greatly on the large solar farms that are a little bit up on the north of the state, where you can get 30 acres and you can put these things in. The rooftop has been a bit more of a challenge, but you are going to see it come into the these big warehouses. Big box stores are going to be definitely
in New York City.
Wherever you
that
have
would be
rooftop.
helpful.
Now, you know, on the tall skyscrapers, I guess there's a challenge there. But
Well, it does. They don't look good from the air, so probably the owners would be upset about.
You know, the aesthetics piece is really a curious thing, and I always
Well, they don't. They just look different. That's all.
exactly. So if we didn't have telephone poles and power lines up to now, and then somebody came in and said, let's put these things in because we can bring power, and people might say like,
well, we love
wow,
our telephone poles.
They look horrible.
Yes.
Now you don't even see them.
That's true.
Because they're an everyday part of your life. And I think the solar and these things will be just a part of the landscape that you won't even register with you.
Are the upstate nuclear power plants, to your knowledge, going to eventually phase out anyway?
I think so. Look, nuclear power is the most expensive way to, essentially most expensive way to boil water that you'll ever come up with. So it was heavily supported over these decades through national policy, and so I think they're not going to be able to compete with the cheaper renewables. And the construction period for one of those facilities, it's just so long that adds to your financial risk. You know, who knows what things are going to be like 7 years down the road when you finish that plant.
Did demand go down at those plants? Is that what caused their losing money?
I think they just, no, I think it was the marketplace of other offerings. So the cheap gas came in and the renewables, and they're no longer able to compete. So that's the same issue around Indian Point. Why that deal was finally done is actually economics.
Okay, so we have about 5 minutes to go in the program. So I wanted to leave a minute for a final message for you. But first, you are here by fortuitous circumstances this morning because you had an event involving electric cars. Want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I just came out from the county center, and I think it is really appropriate and emblematic of the way Sustainable Westchester has tried to pull all of these new energy economy threads together and weave them together in a cohesive whole. And the electric vehicle program has gone very nicely. In fact, the folks from NYSERDA, who's kind of oversee Sustainable Westchester operations, when they saw what we were doing with the electric vehicles, they're like, yes, this is the power of bringing these things in and layering them on top of each other. So they're very happy about that. You can't talk about electric vehicles without thinking about their role on the grid, both as consumers and possibly as resources to supply electricity in peak hours. It's a fascinating subject.
Now, if the New York Department of Transportation or somebody is buying new bus rapid transit buses to complete the right now mythical bus rapid transit routes through Westchester County, when they open, I will love to see that. But anyway, they are buying hybrid buses. Do you see them going to a solar-powered bus system someday?
I've seen them going electric, and then solar will be a part of how that all gets charged. Sure, I mean ultimately, electric vehicles are going to be and are already starting to be cheaper than gas vehicles. On the passenger car, you have about 25 moving parts in an electric vehicle versus
coils,
like countless parts. So the maintenance and the cost of the fuel is just there. So that will translate on the bus side as well. And at this forum that we're holding, we had one of the largest manufacturers in the world, BSD, there for the electric buses. China's deploying these things in the thousands, so it's inevitable here.
Perhaps a new China trade deal. Right, you never can tell.
The China trade certainly spurred the solar industry to a great extent. So,
now I have heard a lot about the Powerwall that Tesla also manufactures and is really coming on strong with. How does the Powerwall work? I understand it's sort of like electricity when Con Ed doesn't deliver it. Like
Sure. Sure, yeah.
Big storms.
Yeah,
Right.
I know,
Yes.
in my neighborhood, in these past few years, everybody's bought these gas generators, and when the power goes out, the whole neighborhood goes up as a hum with these things. And so this will be an opportunity, installing one of these things, to take care of those outages in a sustainable, quiet way. But they're going to be very dynamic pieces of the grid. The colleague that I mentioned, Michelle Delafontaine, is working also on a program which would aggregate the capacity of, say, 100 of these in 100 households. You would get this battery at a reduced price, but you would also allow it to be called on those peak hours. So there'd be income coming back for the battery to help defray that cost. But then when the power goes out, it's there for you.
Is that available now, or is it just being put together?
Power walls are already for
Yes,
sale, as you
yeah,
know,
on an individual basis.
But this aggregated program is something that he's working out now with Tesla.
Not quite ready yet.
It's
quite
not
ready.
deployed yet.
Yeah.
It's
Now,
not deployed yet.
let's see. We're bound to a minute to go on people to be heard. So, what would you like to say to persons about solar and how to move forward from what they've heard?
Well, it's here. It's now. We have multiple ways for people to get involved. The Solarize program is still active. If you have a roof which is not covered by shade and you've got some space up there, you can participate through the Solarize program and make your contribution that way. But now with the community solar format, anybody can participate basically by simply subscribing to one of these projects. And that's where the exciting thing is. Everybody's going to be a part of this and be productive and benefiting from it. So we're really excited about the prospects for Westchester Energy in the future.
Well, this is one of the most exciting programs I've done in a long time. It sees that behind the scenes, things are really happening. John Bailey, thank you. Dan Welch of the Program Director for Westchester Power. This is John Bailey saying good night for people to be heard.